Our parts from Send Cut Send came back already. I've cut some of them off of the parts trees, but I've got my jigs 3D printed for our sliders. This is the slider base that I've already got bolted to the 3D printed part. You can see the screws there attaching it. They just go all the way from the front to attach that part onto there. From there, the tubes will go through those holes and be supported on that. And the outside tube will run outside and then have a little bit of a bend and fall into that. Now, to make sure that I got the bend correct, I've made another template here just to make sure that I can fit it. That bend will start right after that tube intersects, so it goes right from there. Now, these two pieces here and here are removable. Those just unscrew and come off. And that is because when we put the top plate on that gets welded, those points are just right over top, so that would just melt instantly. So I wanted these to be removable, so they just unscrew from the bottom and those will come right out. Tack everything into place in the jig without absolutely melting or smoking off my my 3D print. All I need to do is rough cut the length of these to get them into place and put a notch so that they match up with the outside. This long end I can trim and sand after the fact. It's just a 10-degree bend in the slider, and what that will do is it will sit right in that area there, and it'll just kind of follow this slight outward taper. So here's the slider all loaded into the jig. Bars held into place with some binder clips. I've got the side bars notched and in place. Once I get the tubes welded, I'll take off those side pieces and then we can weld on that top plate. The slider's all done as far as the welding part of it goes. From here, I will have to cut it to length, both the front and rear, to get it to fit. This is the passenger side, so I'm going to get both sides done before I bolt them onto the chassis. And then I can get everything cut and fit, but the jig worked great. So both sliders are finished up, took a quick lunch break, worked on the mini trike, got it ready to go, and now we're ready to do the front bumper. So front bumper jig is here. Got the side brackets bolted onto the jig, and now we have to do the rolled front tube, which we've got that bend radius template for. I'm gonna just roll a big consistent radius because I'm gonna take one for the front upper tube, and there's a lower tube as well, and then I'll take and just tighten up the ends on the longer one after I get it rolled. Tubes all loaded up into the jig, and it all worked perfect. I need to adjust my stick out. My idea is that this lower tube is probably going to get cut almost flush, but I figure I might as well make it even just in case that I don't. So working on the rear bumper now. We've got the rear bumper tabs bolted onto the jig, rear radius template there, and I've already radiused the tube. Now you can see I've made a mark there on the template. That mark there kind of lines up with it, and then I've made some marks here on the outsides, and those are to denote the start point of my bend, because as you can see, this has got a decreasing or increasing radius there at the outside to kind of finish off and wrap around the outside of the bumper. So that's going to be my plan. I'll probably put a larger die in the bender to try and match that outside there, and we'll see what I've got for that. Upper and lower tubes are welded onto the plates, so ready to take this thing out of the jig, and now we can go bolt up our front, rear bumper, sliders, and everything onto the car. Kind of see how this thing's gonna start sitting. So last week I showed you guys how I set the CNC up and actually start the cutting process. This week I'll show you just the quick process of how I actually write the tool paths. So I've already got the part here. This is going to be the carbon fiber floor that I've got designed. Over here on the left side, I've got my setup done already. I've already determined what the stock size will be, or like where the material will be. Now in reality, I'll have a much larger piece of material in here, but it simplifies it down, and that's not a problem. So the first tool paths that I write are the drilling tool paths. Now I've already written the tool paths, just kind of doing a simplified version of that. It goes through and it will do all of our drill points first. These are super simple, probably the simplest thing to write in here. Next, I'm doing some slotted holes. These are going to be like that's what will actually mount the floor to the outside. I'm doing slots to just give myself a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that everything seats properly, since I welded the slider bases up, and there could be a little bit of movement between all of those parts. So you got 3 millimeters of slot on either side to make sure that that works. These slots go back and forth on the way down. Not really needed for the thickness of carbon fiber that I'm doing, but it's the default, and I'm writing quick tool paths, so that's good enough. Being that these are just one-off parts, I don't have to be too picky. Next, I do my inside cuts. So just some contour cuts with some lead in and lead outs. So it starts kind of inside, and then it feeds into the actual cut where the finished part will be, and then feeds back away from the finished part before it retracts the tool. So that's what a lead in and a lead out is. And lastly, we've got our final outside cut. Do that last, that way everything's held into place as long as possible before you're done. I wouldn't want to cut the outside and then come in and do these inside pieces, because this piece could shift then and we would end up in a worse scenario. So that's the reason that I do those things. Once you get all those tool paths written, you can simulate it and come up here and hit simulate, and then hit play, and it will show you the whole tool path that it will take, every single cut. You can speed it up, slow it down, just to, the more complex, the more you'll want to test your simulation. For a part like this, on a machine like mine, they're very basic, very simple, and nothing I really worry about. So most of the time I don't even simulate. But once you're done with that, you can post it. So I'll come up here and hit post process. I've got all this set up, so I'll put 911 floor and post that out. So now I just sent that G code to my shared folder where I can access from the other computer in the garage, and we're ready to go. Cage is out here. The floor is designed to fit inside of it, like so, and that mounts up, lines up with all the holes just about perfectly without the slotting at all even. But that was built in a jig. This was built in separate jigs, and it all gets put together. So there could still be some flexing needed, but I'm gonna set this thing in here and see how it sets. That fits proper there. Oh, I've got a cross brace in the back here of the chassis that is currently in the way. I kind of plan to have a designed one in there. Just haven't done that yet. Let's see if I can tuck it under that for now. This is only 0.5 millimeter thick carbon fiber, so it's super bendy. I'm not sure if we need the slotting or not, but everything seems to be going in as desired. We've got some more of the interior parts to install. This is the main portion of our rear seat / rear inner fenders. Oh, last time I didn't have the engine in either, so I got that to finally show off. All detailed and put in there. Of course, Matt was the one who painted it and detailed it and sent it to me, and it looks great. It fits perfectly. You can see on the underside, how that little oil filter detail pops through that bottom of that skid plate. I revealed the oil pan through that area. I also put a couple of pieces of scale hardware in there just for looks. But that whole thing looks real good. Also, the that rear fan on the engine back here, it just peeks out of that lower window of that skid plate. I'm sure that's kind of hard to see, but just peeks out of there. So I could have covered it completely. I just thought it would be kind of fun to have it be a little exposed. This is the main portion of the rear seat. And by rear portion, I mean, of course, that this whole section is missing, but that'll make a little bit more sense in a few minutes. First, I want to get this slid into place. There we go. Oh, fits perfect. Perfect, perfect. I do still have that aluminum cross brace back there, which is not ideal, not in the right spot. So I will have to pull that out, but it's honestly not hurting anything right now, but that back seat just fits like a glove. So this is going to be our driver's seat. Now, it's got this odd recess here in between the leg area, and that is actually a recess or a cutout for the steering servo horn, because it should, by design, come back and like tuck right in between there. A little uncomfortable for the driver, but in the name of performance. Now, I did also separate out this top cushion portion, so that's separate in there, and currently I've just pressed in a couple of rare earth magnets, and that's what holds it in there. But I did that just in case I need to change the design of this, or I want to make it a little bit more purposeful to, cover up that servo horn or something like that. Depending on what the driver situation is, we'll look at that. But this is going to be our driver's seat. Mounts with this couple of bolt holes on the bottom, which are worked into that floor design. So we'll get that bolted in. And then likewise, we've got a passenger seat. This is a test section of the rear seat. There will be more to this when it's done, but this is what will fill that gap back there. And it actually fits perfect. Gonna help us sell that rear seat 2+2 look. I want to get this bolted in place. There's 3 or 4 or 5 screw locations underneath that holds this in. All right, reassembled everything. The seats are bolted in at least. Now, I didn't have a 20mm servo horn here for the servo, so I swapped a Reefs one on there. But the reason I had to do that is because I meant to make this for a 24mm, but I only made clearance for a 20. So I'll probably redo the seat to make sure that everything is cleared there. But you can see that carbon floor in throughout. It looks really good. Everything fits nice and tight. Also, I dropped the dash in place. Now, the dash is not held in place currently. It's just resting because it's actually going to be mounted via the front inner fenders, which I haven't designed yet. So, but fits nicely. That windshield just resting there as well. It's not attached to the body still, which we talked about in the last episode, but still just isn't done. However, the fit of everything is that's just resting in there, bang on. I mean, it's just, everything is fitting right because it was all done in CAD. Now, the rear seat setup, everything's bolted in, everything looks nice, and the center section of the seat, which is just a test piece, that is not the one that will be in there, but it's just resting in there. It pulls out, it's all keyed in at the top, but there'll be more to it. However, back there is my 450 milliamp 3S pack from Genzace, or Tattoo brand, and that's what the battery will be for this car. So these little 450s, which is going to be plenty for what we're trying to do here, but this is going to set back there in some sort of way. But that's why this rear seat will be removable. Now, that rear seat is removable, but there's this big ugly area back there, and you can see these dimples on either side. Those 2 dimples will hold rare earth magnets, and there'll probably be one at the bottom of the seat as well. And the back of that seat is going to get a cover incorporated for the back here, and that cover and the center section of the rear seat will all be one big piece that will come out, and that is what will cover up our battery. Now, as part of that, what my plan is to do is make like a trim bezel that will go around this rear area, kind of clean all of that up so it will blend the rear cap and the rear of the body into one nice looking piece. This was not a designed part of the carbon body to stay. That was just an excess portion of the mold, and I never cut it off. I don't think Matt has either. He kind of left it back there for now. But my plan is to have that cut off completely. Still have more stuff to do on the interior, of course, and I've got a lot of work to do on getting those front inner fenders into existence. I also have the bumpers on the chassis. Now, I haven't cut them to length yet. They're extra long. I do need to leave a little bit more than I would really like, just to make sure that I meet the Class 1 rules, where it goes to the inside of the top of the tire at least. So we'll go to about there on each side. So leaves a little bit extra. Not ideal, but gotta meet the rules. The rear is similar. It's a little bit wider in general. The body, of course, is just resting on here. This is a test rear tail light. This is printed in just red filament. In the end, it will be translucent red, so we'll be able to light it up, and it will give us that rear tail light look. Bumpers in place, and you can see the exhaust of that twin turbo just peeking out. Not too much, but not nothing. So I wanted a little bit showing. It's been a big week the last 2 weeks. We got a ton done. Getting the bumpers and sliders all onto the car was a big step. The send cut send stuff is so nice. It's such a luxury to be able to design up some parts, send it to them, and get it back. Now, I'm not 100% done with everything from them. I haven't redone that front bell crank. I do have the metal or steel servo horns here, and these are what I'll make that front bell crank out of. Get a 24 millimeter on the bottom side, the side that will go to the actual knuckle, and then a 20 millimeter on the top. That's to exaggerate the throw a little bit. So that's what we're going to, I have to get that built, and I likely will build mats as well. That's probably, that could even be a tonight project, depending on how quickly I get this video edited. But that's on there. Getting some of that, those last few things. I also have to get Matt's carbon fiber machined for the front of his steering setup. But I'm not too concerned. That's pretty simple. I'm not overly concerned with that. The interior really came together quickly tonight as I got everything cut and installed and the parts put in there. I spent a ton of time on the design of that interior this weekend. I probably put in 20 hours of design work Saturday and Sunday total. So there's a lot to do there, and it's not all done. It's not all perfect. I still have to get the center console area done to cover up that the motor, the transmission hole area. I'll put the shifters on top of the VFD cover that, since they'll be in about the appropriate spot, and I think that'll look good. I always like to do that. Get that in. The dash up front, setting in there in between the cage, just like designed. That's perfect. Now that dash will mount via the front inner fenders, and I haven't designed those yet, but I've got it in my head. I just need to get it into CAD and then 3D printed. So that will finish that up, and then the interior will be good enough done for this. I wanted to do door panels to kind of finish the inside of that look. That 100% can wait until a later day. I don't feel bad about skipping that detail whatsoever. I feel like that's a reaching goal. If there was time, I'll 3D print those. If not, scratch it off the list. The rear area is absolutely an area that I will focus on, even though it's a bit of a detail and not 100% necessary. It's necessary to me. To get it looking correctly is high on the list. I need to get the trim panel all designed and printed, fit in there to make sure that it's going to work correctly with the final rear seat cover design that I'll come up with. Matt may have me talked into ditching the rear wing, at least for the actual running situation. I think that we're going to have a rear wing that can go on there for the show part of it, and then we'll pull it off for the running portion. We'll have louvers or grates, grills, whatever you want to call it, on both pieces so that it's all there. But I actually redesigned the rear wing
again to make it look better. So I do need to get that 3D printed. I haven't done that yet. There's obviously still some major design things to get done. Headlight bezels is one of them that I don't feel like I can skimp out on. I need to get that done. I need to get this whole thing clear coated, final sanded and then clear coated. And I have decided that I'm actually going to do a livery that is going to be a partial vinyl wrap. So we're not going to do a painted livery, which I kind of talked about before. Not going to do that. We're going to clear coat everything. Then I'm going to have a vinyl wrap that just covers portions of it. It's going to, you know, stay low and unintrusive overall so that I don't take away from the carbon fiber, but to be able to get some nice style, professionally designed and done in a way that I know will look good, to be able to save myself time. A vinyl wrap is absolutely going to tick those boxes off. And I have chosen the livery, one that is going to play off of Matt's choice, which he chose long before I did, and one that I think makes a ton of sense when playing off of his. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that itself. I still have a huge list of to-do items on this car. It's lengthy. I can't believe how long it is. There's parts I still need to order. There's parts I need to test fit. There's parts I got to design, 3D print, fabricate, TIG welding, all left to do on this thing. Class 2 and Class 3, the thought exists. We'll figure it out. I can last ditch effort, final 2 days, throw something together if needed. It'll be fine. Whatever, make it happen. But this is all I care about. I'm resigning to that discussion, and you guys can razz me on it later. I'll find a way to compete in all 3 classes. I'll say that. However it has to happen, I'm saying it now. Hope you guys are enjoying the journey that we're going on for this overly engineered, highly fancy 911 Class 1. I'm super stoked with it. The whole process has gone as I hoped, and in the end I think that we're going to end up with something that I'm going to be pretty proud of. So that's going to do it for this week's video. Hopefully there was enough progress in here once I look at the footage to make something that is going to be respectable. I didn't think of some sort of engaging question to ask you guys to try and make some comments for this video, so leave a comment if you have one. It's appreciated when you do. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. I gotta get to editing, get this video out, and get right back to work. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.